Bat Force Radio.
Bat Force Radio is rated M for mature, or should that be immature?
Hey guys, Dustin Nguyen.
Hey, this is Scott Snyder.
This is Paul Dini.
And you're listening to Bat Force Radio.
And you're listening to Bat Force Radio.
You're listening to Bat Force Radio.
This is Tom King. I write Batman Bitch, and this is Bat Force Radio.
And now you're taking on more projects.
Yeah. I'm okay right now. There's a lot of stuff I want to do, and I've been talking to them about stuff, and there's like creator own stuff I've been working on for a while, but yeah, it's just a lot. I mean, if I could write, honestly, like, it's kind of funny. It's like, I actually really like the idea of writing one comic a week, but it's weird. Like, if all I had to do is depend on myself, I could do one comic a week easy. Like, I have a system, but then what happens is I'll have to wait on somebody else for something, and when I have to wait on somebody else for something, it's like it kind of causes a bottleneck, and that's where it gets kind of rough doing that, because you'll, like, you know, you turn something in and you have to like wait to hear back if it works or confirmed or not, and that can take like, sometimes it can take a day, sometimes it can take a week, and when it takes a week, and the thing is, for me, like, I'm one of the least this won't sound humble at all, but I'm one of the least like difficult creators, I think, in comics. And because I'm kind of like a well-oiled machine, it's like the whole thing about like the squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of thing. Because my stuff is usually like runs like a pretty well-oiled machine, when it starts to break down, nobody really notices for like 2 weeks. And then it's that thing of like, but there's other projects. This is for every publisher. This happens at every publisher. The projects that are like falling apart always gets the most attention, which kind of works if you're just like me, a well-oiled machine that just kind of works. But then what happens is sometimes you just need an answer for something, and it'll take a week, and all I need is an answer. But it's because they're distracted by the stuff not working.
Cool situation. David Marquez just comes over to DC now from Marvel, and you're doing his first project.
Yeah, I love David. David is awesome. David's good people, dude. He lives here in Portland. David Marquez and I met in Brian Michael Bendis' class. So I took Brian Michael Bendis' writing class almost 10 years ago now, I guess, 2010. And after that, and I started doing stuff. I was already doing stuff at Image, and I had already done a little bit of stuff at DC and Marvel. But later on, once I was a little more established, and I think like Nailbiter had been coming out for like maybe a year or so, he asked me if I wanted to come and guest speak. And it would be me and a couple other people, and David Marquez was there. And we just kind of like, you know, you start talking to this person, and you're basically, you know, you're doing like a Q&A talking about collaboration. You talk a little bit about like the challenges you had kind of coming up, and the things that, you know, worked and didn't work when you were breaking in. But a large part of that particular class was about, or that particular time he would have us come in, was always about what it's like working with another person. That's why he'd have like a writer and an artist. So we could talk about it. Talk about what it's like, you know, the good and the bad parts of collaborating and the challenges of it. And so it was kind of funny, like, because David and I had that experience. So we did it twice a year for like 3 or 4 years in a row. Because of that, we like know all each other's weird little tics and habits. Because it's like, if I'm talking about things I like or don't like, or challenges I've had with artists, or things I like about artists, and he's like sitting there talking about things he likes that writers do and things he doesn't like writers do, it's like we're both on the same page in a weird way. So when we started working with each other, it went really well. Like, it clicked. I mean, I went to his house before he decided for sure he was going to come to DC. He wasn't really sure if he was going to leave Marvel or not. And he also wanted to make sure things were on the up and up, that he wasn't doing anything shady. But I went over there and I was like, all right, here's the plan. I basically pitched him everything we were doing. All like the big plans for 2019, 2020, and like a tiny bit 2021, but mostly the plans for 2019 and the 2020 stuff. And
did someone just take a
Tom unmuted.
Thought my mute button was on now.
Anyway, damn.
best podcast ever.
Hey,
My apologies.
keep
I
it
was
real,
blowing
man.
my nose, and I threw the toilet paper away, and I didn't realize it was not on mute.
We're keeping that in.
Sure. No, poor David. So David Marquez. So David, he I pitched him everything, and he was really into it, and he actually got it, and like he sat there and he read a lot of the stuff we had done with Metal and No Justice, and he read everything, and then he agreed to come over. And I mean, we actually kind of waited a little bit because we were going to publish the book earlier. Originally, Batman and Superman #1 was supposed to come out in June, but we pushed it back. We waited 2 months for him.
Okay.
And then it just worked out. It actually worked out because of... It was really weird, man. It all kind of came together because it was one of these things where it was like, well, if we had come out in June, we would have ruined the ending to Batman Who Laughs.
Yeah.
Right. So it kind of worked out. And then it was like a weird like confluence of events where first we were like, all right, well, let's push it to July. Let's wait till July. That way we don't ruin the end of Batman Who Laughs. And then it was like, okay, we're not going to be ready yet. Let's not push a book out if we're not ready. Let's go ahead and do it in August. So we pushed it to August. This was before we even announced it. And then it was really clear, like when Scott was working on Batman Who Laughs 6, that it was like that comic was going to end up being like 48 pages long or something. And they were just like, we'll break it into 2 and we'll do an issue 7. So it worked out. So it's one of those things where it's like we never ended up messing up. Like we never ended up ruining what Scott was doing and Jock was doing with Batman Who Laughs. But he's been worth it, you know, and like stuff Dave is doing is awesome. Like he's going to be starting issue 5 soon, so we're pretty far ahead. But yeah, man, he's great. I love working with David. He's been really awesome, and he came up with some really cool ideas. Like the whole thing about how it's the batarangs, that's the batarangs who last losing. Like that was David's idea. Like we were having all these conversations about what he was using, and I think we were just like, oh, he's just going to inject them with like a syringe. And then he was like, well, you know, all this stuff's about metal. Shouldn't it be like something made of metal? And I was like, oh, batarangs. Yes. You're right. That is what we should do. So, I don't know. David's been great. I like him a lot. I'm bummed out because he moved. He was living here in Portland for the last couple of years. And then he moved back to Austin just like 2 weeks ago.
He's in my backyard.
Yeah, he just got there. I'm going to see him tomorrow. We're doing some comic book stuff. I'm going to see him tomorrow. Maybe Monday, I think, but tomorrow, I think. But, yeah, he's great. David, I got super lucky to be able to get David over. I've been a fan of his for a while. I really liked when he was doing the stuff with... I mean, he mostly only worked with Bendis. He did like one thing, and then he started working with Bendis. But yeah, I like David a bunch. Like, we just got lucky, and the book looks great, and there's stuff... Like, it's interesting because this is the first time he's done anything for DC. Anything. And he's going right at Batman and Superman, and we're not just doing just Batman and Superman. There's a lot of... there's little cameos and stuff throughout with all different kinds of heroes and villains and stuff. So he's getting like thrown to the deep end in some ways. And with each issue, you can see it getting like better and better, that he's getting more comfortable with this universe. But yeah, David's great.
I guess we can go full spoiler.
Sure, you can go full spoiler. Yeah.
I wanted to tell you, I've been having so much fun reading the Flash Year 1 arc that you got going on.
Oh, thanks.
And then I read Batman 1, and I got a real bone to pick with you, man.
All right, fire away. What'd I do?
That ending pissed me off. No, right. I loved it. No, I loved it. I was like, oh, shit, he's going for it. This is awesome. I love it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it was like, I wish we had been able to keep it secret. Like, that's one of the only things that's really challenging about monthly books. And I've had this conversation with them ever since I came back when I started doing Flash, where it was like, how do you keep some stuff secret? And it's impossible. Like, it's so challenging now.
Yeah, with the solicitations. I mean, don't you hate that as a writer?
Oh, yeah, it drives me nuts. But what I have to recognize is that, like, yeah, like, we live it, right? Like, all of us, we're really big Batman fans. We're, like, obsessed with comic books, and we read the solicits. We look at the covers. Like, I've been doing that since I was a kid, right? Like, the moment I learned you could do that, I was doing it. The majority of the readers don't. We've kind of learned. So it's tough. It's a really weird balancing act that I've been trying to crack it, how you do it best, how you can surprise people. And sometimes you can. But sometimes it's hard. Like, it's hard to not have... Because think about this. Like, we've already shown the cover to issue 4. And 1 hasn't even come out yet. Like, how do I not put Shazam on it? And then think about this: is that like, how do you keep that secret from retailers, and how do you keep it like you kind of want people to know there's cool stuff happening in the book, right? Like they're not going to buy it unless they know there's cool things happening. So sometimes you have to like give away some stuff sometimes. But I mean, there's a trick to it. It's not about the character, it's about what the character is doing. Right? That's the thing. So you can put them on covers and stuff. But yeah, it drives me a little nuts. But we try to find a balance. We try to find a way to make it work, and that's part of the math. That's actually part of the I love puzzles. And it's part of the puzzle of working on like big 2 superhero stuff is like, how can you do this where it's a surprise, but you've already given it away a little bit?
Well, you mentioned Bendis, and that's one of the challenge he has with his Leviathan book is that he's trying hard not to have any spoilers, give away the major plot points,
Yeah. I mean, you can get away with it a little. It depends. There's a lot of different variables in it, but I don't know. It's something we talk about a lot. We talk about a lot when we're trying to figure this stuff out of like, how can you actually surprise people now? But it's interesting, right? So like, go totally into spoilers, and I don't want to talk about this a lot, but Batman came out this week, and there's that scene with Alfred in it, right?
Right.
And there were people like retailers saying on Twitter that they wish they had known, because if they had known, they would have ordered more.
Yeah.
So does that mean that by not telling people in advance that DC lost money?
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing with Marvel and Image, anybody. Like, retailers were upset when they found out that Walking Dead 193 was the last issue. If they had known, they would have ordered a lot more, but they didn't. That's where the balance comes in sometimes, and it's really challenging. It's tough. But like I said, you just try to make it cool. That's it. That's it. So that's the thing with Batman, Superman. Like, some of the endings, we would try to find ways of twisting it around and make it so it's not just about like, oh, look, here's his character reveal. It's about what they're doing and what they say and why they're there. Like, that's the stuff that you make. It's important for the story.
And with this particular issue, going back about a month and a half ago, they released that preview of it that showed the last page, the Billy Batson reveal.
That was the cover. So we never actually showed the last page, but we showed the cover to issue 2.
There's a preview, because before, like, I got a copy of a digital copy.
Yeah, there was the retailers.
But before that even came out, there was one of the websites had a preview of the series, of the issue, and it showed not the Shazam holding Superman page, but the close up of him saying, "My name is Billy Batson."
Yeah. I mean,
way early.
It's weird, right? Like, you want to sell the books, you got to tell people what's happening in the book. But I'm glad you liked the ending. That's what matters.
I loved it. And, like I was saying, I'm having so much fun reading Flash, and then reading this, I was so scared. I was like, oh my God, he's going like total horror, kind of going back, like.
Well, we have Tom doing what he's doing with Alfred over in Batman, and then you doing what you're doing with Jim Gordon here, because the scene after Batman and Superman leave him on the roof, we see that sort of silhouette shot of him, that sort of Sin City looking panel of him, and he's starting to laugh.
Yeah, he plays a big part of the story. Like, he definitely is manipulating things behind the scenes, working with the Batman Who Laughs. To kind of manipulate and put people where they want them. I mean, the only reason why Batman and Superman ended up in that Batcave was because Gordon sent them there. Like, he put them on the trail to get there, so he kind of led them into a trap. So yeah, man, like, there's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, that's the thing we talk about this a little bit, is that like things are definitely okay. So it's like this. Like, have you ever heard the term of like a hero is only as good as their villain, right? Mm-hmm. So that means that for your heroes to be like as strong and to show how great your heroes are, that means you really got to put them through something. That means you really got to confront them with villains that are really strong. So that way your heroes can overcome and show how great they are, right? It's like you can only see how bright and how like great and how much your heroes shine when you put them in darkness, right? Like, that's when they shine the brightest, is when they're in the dark. And so that's what the story is. And that was the thing I thought about this a lot, was like with Batman and Superman, how best to show how bright and shiny. It's like with Flash too, right? Where it's like how hopeful and optimistic and all those things. You have to test it. And you got to put them in that dark to see how much they shine. Because if you're standing in the daylight, you have a flashlight, you can't tell if a flashlight's bright. You can only tell at night.
That's true. That's true.
Right? So I think about that a lot about superheroes, and I think that's when you can tell some books kind of like they're good and everybody's happy and everything's working, but you lose interest in it, I think. It kind of doesn't pop as much. But when you put your characters through something, and that's how you show how great they are, because they overcome these things. And I learned a lot of that working on Nailbiter. Nailbiter was a book that, was horror, but it allowed me to kind of play with those elements and learn some of those tricks. And then, so I'm trying to use that on Batman Superman. I'm trying to make it a little bit more, a little bit of horror for sure, because I do that little bit of horror. I can play with it. I like doing that. I don't normally see Batman Superman. I think you see Batman in it a lot, obviously, like with Scott. Scott did a lot of horror stuff with Batman. You don't see Superman like that as much.
Well, you also don't see Shazam like that ever.
No, ever.
And
ever.
That was what was really cool. I mean, I had a question. I was like, when you first started, and I don't know, I know that, a lot of you creators start planning your stories like this, years, maybe even months ahead. Have you always wanted to write, including Shazam, Billy Batson, or was there any influence with the recent movie that came out?
Oh, no. I mean, we planned this out a long time ago. It was the one, we basically made like a list. Man, I don't know, a year and a half ago, we started talking about this. So we knew, it was weird. Like, we knew bits and pieces of it, but this particular part really came up in like May of 2018, I think. And so we started making a list and started talking about it, going back and forth and being like, which characters do we want to get infected and why?
Okay.
And so we made this, and why, not just why, like, why us, but like, why would the Batman Who Laughs pick them? That was a big part of it. Because it couldn't just be us, like, dicking around, just being like, what about this character? What about this character?
Right.
It was cool. It was like, why would the actual Batman Who Laughs pick some of these people? What would be his motivation? So we made this list. And Shazam, it was funny, like, we made this list of the characters. Some of them we were like, oh, this will be obvious, and this will be this and everything. But we were like, who's the heavy hitter? Who would be the heavy hitter? Who would be the one that you would not expect? And I remember we wrote Shazam up there. It was funny. I remember James wrote it, because I said it. I was like, well, Shazam. Like, if we got Shazam, that'd be crazy. But I was like, but don't write that up on the wall. Don't write that up on the wall, because it's not going to happen. And then James just wrote up on the wall anyway. He was like, I'm writing it. And I remember when we came and we gave the list to them, and it wasn't a complete list. It was like a long list. But the big part was we had reasons for why. And I've always liked Shazam. I've always liked Billy Batson. I actually really, it's funny, like, one of the reasons why we picked him was because of Underworld Unleashed. In Underworld Unleashed in the 90s, it was like Mark Waid and Howard Porter. I think it's 96, 97. It was like right before JLA came out. In that story, Neuron goes out and he, offers all the villains whatever they want, right? That's how they got Blockbuster. That's how Lex Luthor came back from the dead. Black Manta turns into like a big monster for a little bit. I think the two biggest gets, and people might tell me I'm wrong on this, but two of the biggest gets were that Lex Luthor came back from the dead and is like, the Lex Luthor we have now is that Lex Luthor. Like, or you know what I mean? Like the bald, like thin, buff Lex Luthor, because before that he was the John Byrne Lex Luthor, and then he was the long-haired Alexander Luthor Jr. or whatever.
Right.
And he died, and then he got brought back during Underworld Unleashed, and there was a couple other things. Anyway, so throughout that story, it was like, oh, I'm going to corrupt these villains, and then I'm going to corrupt the heroes, right? And throughout the story, you think that Neuron wants Superman. You think Superman is who he's after, because he's like the most pure of you, the most pure. And then Trickster, the original Trickster, James Jesse, he figures it out. He's like, oh, no, the most pure hero is Billy Batson. That's who Neuron wants. And so when we were building this whole big story, I'm a big fan of Underworld Unleashed, and so I think it's obvious sometimes. Like, that's why I had Trickster in Flash, and he references that story, and there's obviously homages to that throughout some of the stuff we're doing with the Infected and some of the stuff the Year of the Villain. But
cool.
I think the Batman Who Laughs looks at Shazam, and there's two things to him. One, if I can corrupt him, if I can take Shazam, who's one of the most pure heroes out there, and I can make him like me, that's a win, and that's scary, and I can prove to everyone else that none of you are, like, untouchable. I can get any of you. If I can get him, I can get any of you, right? And then there's the magic connection. So it's like if I'm somebody who can infiltrate.
Superman's weakness.
Yeah, Superman's weakness. Somebody who can get into the Rock of Eternity. Like, he fills a role of, now I have a strong soldier who is also able to use magic. I can send him after Superman because that's his weakness. But it's also a warning to all of you, a warning to all the heroes that if I can get him, I can get anybody. And so that was what we picked him. That was it. And it was funny. I didn't think we would get him. And then once we pitched that, and then I wrote that scene, the scene where he's like, "My name is Billy Batson." When I wrote that, that was when we knew we had him. Like, then we knew we were going to be able to use Shazam. And yeah, it's awesome. He plays a big part in all this stuff. He's pretty mean. Issue 2's, it's funny with him because he's still Billy, right? Like, he doesn't just become outright evil. It's like a 13-year-old kid with all these powers who suddenly is acting like a jerk. And he acted like a jerk before, but this is, remember, he was like that when Jeff and Gary Frank did that stuff where he was kind of a jerk before he got to the family and all that.
Yeah.
But this brings out like the worst parts of him where he's just a little shit and he's mean, but he loves the idea of being able to fight Batman and Superman. And, like, in his mind, he's like, "Oh my God, I get to fight Batman and Superman. This is great." This is fun. That's a big part of it too.
I like how after the trap is sprung, after he reveals who he is, says Shazam, it shows there's a little detail that shows how deep this was planned because the Batarang that he pulls out against Superman has Superman's symbol on it.
I'm glad you saw that because it's like that's a major part of this thing is those Batarangs aren't just willy-nilly created. They're each created for a reason, and they're each created for a specific person. And so that one was made specifically for Superman.
Holy shit! Now they're going to start marketing and selling those, and we're going to have them.
I know.
And then you're going to have to make another trip to Burbank and go through their, archive of collectibles and get them all.
Oh, I'm doing that soon, my friend.
Steal all their shit.
I'm already excited.
How's that Batman figure?
Which one?
The Dark Knight Returns figure that you got?
Let's go.
Oh yeah, that's it. I can see right now where I'm sitting. It's right in front of my Hot Toys Batman Returns, like the bigger one. But yeah, it's sitting right here. I have a bunch of Batman stuff. When you asked, I was like, "Which one are you talking about?" There's been some I want to get. There was a couple of those. What do you call it? Well, there's those Mezco. Yeah, those ones. Whatever they're called, 112 or whatever. There was one that I missed. Oh, and what sucks is they released one. Because stuff sells out so fast. They had one that was Gordon that came. They just released this, so they just put up on there for pre-order, right? The Gordon one.
I just got him.
Oh my god!
Like yesterday, yeah.
I missed it. Is it cool? Because it comes with a little. It comes with the bat signal, right?
It's not little. It's big.
Oh, is it
cool.
big? Man.
It's really cool, and it really works, and it's like really bright. And the first thing I did was light up my entire house with the bat signal.
That's awesome. Yeah, I wanted that one. I'm gonna have to get on secondary, or sometimes buy. There's a comic shop nearby me. They sometimes get the Mezco stuff, and so I kind of keep an eye out because there's that one, and then there's a Hal Jordan variant that they put out that was a previews exclusive that I want to get. But yeah, I get a lot of toys, so I'm definitely like a little bit off. I have a lot. I have a lot here in my office. I've been building. My daughter and I. So when the Batman Lego, I'm gonna go on a little weird tangent. When the Batman Lego movie came out, the Lego they started making toys that were just for the movie, and they have a couple of DC superhero ones too. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna make the deal with myself because I get Lego sets, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna buy every single one of the Batman Legos that they make. But they're not gonna make that many, right?
Jesus, you're crazy.
Oh, I have pretty much all of them. I don't have. There's a couple that I was like, all right, listen, I do not need to get Egghead. Like, I can hold off on getting this Egghead like a mecha suit. That one I can hold off on. But I have almost all of them. I think I'm missing like 3 or 4 at this point, and mostly because I didn't realize they just kept releasing them. And so, I was able to build them for a while. Because my daughter was too young, and now she's old enough that I know she's not going to like put something in her mouth. And so every day we build Lego sets when I get off work before like, you know, as dinner's getting ready, and then she eats dinner and goes to bed and everything. And dude, it's wild. Like, I'm building all these like crazy Lego sets of like, I built the Batcave last Saturday, and yeah, it's interesting with her because she like gravitates for certain characters, so she knows the names. She's only 3, but she knows the names of all the characters, all the Bat villains now, and it's interesting to see which characters she's like, I want to play with this one, and it's like she doesn't know anything about them. It's interesting to like talk to a kid that doesn't know the mythology, doesn't know the history of these Batman characters, but to see which characters they gravitate toward. They're like, well, I want to play with this one. And it's like one of the main ones she wants to play with is Joker. Like, she wants to play with Joker. She wants to play with Catwoman. Like, she likes the Batman one, but there's also a million because every set comes to Batman, so it kind of like devalues it in a weird way. But it's like there's one Joker. She really likes Killer Croc, but I think it's just he's a Joker. So, but
Isn't it funny how they gravitate towards the villains? My son's the same way. He loves Star Wars, and he loves Boba Fett, Stormtroopers, Darth Vader, like all the villains.
Yeah, see, this is why we did Year of the Villain, to get like super insider with you.
They look the coolest. I mean, it's just a fact. You know, the villains, they have the coolest equipment. You know, you got to admit that the Empire's got the cooler spaceships in Star Wars.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Empire has better benefits as well. They got full dental, and you know,
I'm sure they have some kind of insurance because they just keep losing those Death Stars. You know, they just keep losing stuff. They keep getting blown up.
Whereas the rebels can't even get a hand replaced.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, so like we, it's interesting seeing what she does go for. You know, but you're right. It's like villains. People really like villains, and she goes for that stuff. But I mean, that's the thing with we'll get back to Batman, Superman. Like, it's so surprising. I guess I shouldn't say surprising. I feel like Scott knew, because I remember we had a meeting with. We had a meeting in November of 2017 in New York, and that was the one where Scott pitched the Batman Who Laughs. Like, we knew all the Dark Knights. It was like we knew some of them. We didn't have names for all of them. Like, we knew the Cyborg one was going to be Murder Machine, and we knew a little bit about what was the other one we knew? We knew like some of them, but we didn't know the names of them. But like, it was interesting. Like, the Grim Knight was made in that room, but didn't make it into metal. You know.
Mm-hmm.
He made it into the Batman Who Laughs series, but Scott was pitching the Batman Who Laughs, and I remember like we were all like, "Yeah, this is really cool. Like, this is really cool. It's really fun." But I don't think any of us knew how big it would get. Like, the fact that there's Dark Knight toys, that the Batman Who Laughs like is so popular
and quick. I mean, most times, you know, it'll be a couple years before merchandise starts hitting the shelves. No, there was Batman Who Laughs stuff out before. I want to say before the series had even ended.
Yeah.
Confirming, yeah, the first pieces did come out before the last issue of Metal hit.
Isn't that crazy? It's so crazy. Like, there was already statues and stuff. There was already like a Funko Pop. Like, I have a Funko Pop on my desk of him. Yeah, it's wild. Like, stuff like that popular. It reminds me, though, it does remind me of almost like how Venom was, you know, like how Venom kind of became popular. I feel like Venom became popular quickly. It's interesting like that, you know? And then, but at the same time, people will talk about being sick of Venom, but now Venom is like, the movie made $1 billion or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know, but he's fun to write. I think that's part of it. He's fun to write. Like, Scott loves writing him. I like writing him up against Superman, because I think, and I'm not sure if we talked about this before, but it's like the idea that, like, you know, he had his Superman who dies at the beginning, right? Like, he died during Metal, but we show that again at the beginning of this, so we can establish that relationship, that he had a Superman that he killed. And I think that the Batman Who Laughs regrets killing his Superman, because it's interesting. Like, our Batman, Bruce sees Superman as his friend, his partner, and he respects him, right? I think the Batman Who Laughs looked at his Superman as a tool, like a weapon to be used.
Right.
The fact that he got rid of that tool, and the fact that he got rid of that weapon bothers him, and that's part of why he wants his Superman back. And that's part of what this story is about, is like this sort of him having this need to get his greatest asset, his greatest weapon back. And that plays a part of this story. that we're building. But I love writing him taunting them, because there's a thing, he can taunt Batman and Superman. I know exactly what Batman really thinks of you, kind of stuff, you know. And is he lying? Is he telling the truth? Is he exaggerating something? But it's just fun to write because he is such a mean character. It sounds small to say somebody is mean, but that's what you know what I mean.
It's got to be fun as a writer to be able to write a story like this, and you get to think in that kind of frame of mind, and you're like, you know, Batman would never do this, but the Batman Who Laughs would, and then you get to put it in a story.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the thing. It was like that when I was doing Nailbiter. The image book I did was that I needed to, if I could hear the Nailbiter's voice, if I could hear Warren's voice, and in my head, right, I could. Then the whole story would kind of base around him, you know, and you can hear these like nasty, mean, but like kind of funny in a weird way. And that's the thing about the Batman Who Laughs. Like the Batman Who Laughs, because he is that mean version of Batman, and he has, like you just said, right? It's like all the things you know Batman is capable of doing, or all the horrible things he thought of, or all the horrible things he could possibly do. I
don't think he's mean. I think he's actually the most honest version of Batman.
Exactly. You know what,
Bruce Wayne, real Batman, holds everything in.
Yeah,
Batman Who Laughs is like, fuck it, I'll say it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. That's a great way to put it. Yeah, you're right. When I was doing the first arc on Flash with Godspeed, there was a couple things where I was like thinking about things we would never see Barry do. Like Barry understands science, but he would never grab somebody and vibrate them through a wall, right? And like leave them there. And he would never shake somebody to the point where it was like a blender for their insides. But Godspeed would, you know? Mm-hmm. And we had those scenes like where he's like fighting a criminal and then it vibrates him into a wall and lets go of them to kill them. And like drags a person, 100 miles in a second or whatever it is, right? To like kill them, right? And that's part of the fun things about doing Batman Who Laughs is it's like now take that even bigger because Batman is such a like calculated person. I mean, look at Tower of Babel, which is such a great Batman idea and Batman story that Mark Waid did, where it's like he knows how to do all this stuff. He knows how to take everyone down, but he would never do that. He's thought about every little possible variation, every little variable, what he could possibly do to take people down.
And that's the story I thought of at the very beginning when, you know, you had Bruce or Batman and Superman talking, mm-hmm. and, you know, Superman says, I know what you're doing. You're testing me.
Yeah.
That was the story I thought back to.
That was one of the first scenes we wrote for the book it was interesting. Like, I think in December and November was when I was writing outlines we were developing, but I think when I finally sat down to start writing issue 1 was probably like November, December. And when I was sitting there working on that was one of the first parts I wrote, was this idea that Batman would be asking Superman questions and Superman would figure out that he was interrogating him. Because you also want to make sure that Superman isn't like punked out. He's a smart person, you know, he's an investigative reporter. So he also is a little bit wise to some of Batman's games. Like he knows Batman well enough to know when Batman is doing something, even if he's trying to hide it. And he can totally tell that, yeah, he's interrogating him. I mean, this book, it's going to be pretty crazy. Like issue 2 has a lot of really big moments in it. 3 has one of my like favorite 2-page spreads in it. 4 gets pretty nutty. There's like some crazy fights in 4. 5 has a really... It's funny, like 5... Normally, it's interesting. Like normally when you're doing books like this, the last issue is the one that's like all fighting and then has like a little epilogue kind of thing. Whereas in ours is almost in a weird order because it's like 4 is a lot of fighting. And then 5 has fighting in it, but it also has really quiet moments. Like there's little emotional moments throughout 5. And then 6 is sort of an epilogue issue, but it definitely carries into the rest of the DCU after that and becomes a bigger story, which you can kind of already see because we've already solicited, back to solicitations. We already had to solicit some of the specials and stuff for the rest of the Infected.
Now, David's on the entire arc?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I know. Isn't that awesome?
It is awesome.
That's why we were like, you know, do we push it back one more month? And it's like, yeah, if we can, let's push it back one more month. But it's interesting. I think by the time you get around to, I would say a month from now, about a month from this week, you'll start seeing how big this story gets and how much it starts to be like a big thing. Not to get too much into spoilers and stuff, but there'll be stuff announced in like a month. You'll start to see how big it gets.
I already want a Shazam Who Laughs figure, toy, statue, whatever.
I know. I hope we get that.
August 28th is the release date, not only for issue 1 of Batman Superman, but you also have your 77th issue of Flash coming out the same day.
Dude, there's a lot of books that come out this week.
It's busy. I was thinking about the length of your run on Flash now, and I think that you might be second to only Mark Waid right now for the longest run on Flash.
No, I mean, well, yes and no, because Carrie Bates was on the books throughout the 70s and early 80s for like almost 10 years. So like no one will beat Carrie Bates. But it's really weird though. I think I have the longest consecutive because Mark Waid took a break in the middle of his run. He took a break for a year, and Grant Morrison and Mark Millar wrote it for a whole year.
Yeah, I think Mark Waid's run before his break was like 60 issues or something.
Yeah, Jeff did 63 issues in a row. I mean, but you know, Mark was on that for a while too. Like I'm in double chip land, so that's a whole other story, right? It's like I'm getting there twice as fast as they were. Where I mean, Mark really did write that book for a long time. You know, I mean, he basically wrote it. There's gaps because you have him, you have Brian Augustine would co-write with him sometimes. There's the Grant Morrison, Mark Millar gap, but really, I mean, Mark Waid wrote it from like, you know, the early '90s all the way through until Jeff took over, and Jeff didn't take over until 2001. You know, so he did write it for almost 10 years too. So it's nuts. Like those guys really did. They were on those books for a long time. Flash is weird like that. Flash is one of those books kind of like Daredevil, where someone stays on it for a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, 77, dude. I'm excited about this arc that we're doing with Death of Speed Force and all the stuff with the Black Flash and. But yeah, I've written 80, well, including the annuals plus the Rebirth special. I have written like 87 issues of the Flash total so far.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm a little ahead. Like I'm already writing for the 2020 stuff. But yeah, we'll see how far I get. I'd like to get to 100, but you never know. I don't want to ever jinx myself.
Yeah.
Are we going to get a Joshua Williamson Flash omnibus?
Oh, I don't know. That'd be awesome. Because I have those Jeff Johns ones, and I have the Francis Manapul one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's tough though when you're talking about 100 books. Jeff's funny because the way they're doing, because they're re-releasing Jeff's in these like those like paperback ones. They're collecting everything. So even the one that I think just came out, or the one that just came out, that one has Rebirth plus like a Rogues 3-parter he did, plus the Blackest Night 3-parter. So when you get those Jeff Johns ones, they're collecting everything, not just his initial run in the book, but even the Barry Allen stuff. So they're going to make it so it's like everything up until probably, I imagine, all the way until the last issue of Flashpoint will be in one of those books. So when you look at it, like Jeff has this huge library of Flash books, and they're going to have to like re-release those hardcovers. But yeah, I would love to have some kind of omnibus. I don't know how you would do that. You can't do a 100-issue omnibus.
Well, I mean, yeah, well, in volumes they usually.
Yeah, that'd be awesome if I got like 4 volumes of that. I don't know. It'll depend on a lot of things. Let's see how it ends. I think that's going to be the key. If I can get the ending the way I want it, get the ending I want, and
you're like, cancel everything.
Yeah.
That brings up a good question. Do you know how your run is going to end?
I know how I want it to end. Okay. You know, I know exactly, like I could lay it out exactly how I want it to end, and I know the big scenes. I know like there's a 2-page spread that I want to do in the last issue. There's all kinds of stuff. Like I can see how I want that last issue to go. But the reality is I don't own these characters, and so it's like you never know. And it's like I still have to make sure, like my editors know, like the people who need to know, but you never know what can change between now and also I might change my mind. Like, and actually, I already, like there was a moment really early on, I think I'm trying to remember when this was. It was before Flash War ended, so sometime around when I was still. No, Flash War hadn't even come out yet. So I think it was like right before Flash War started coming out. I was talking to one of the editors, and I was like, "Oh, I kind of have an idea for what I want the last issue to be." And I was talking about it with them, and I could tell they just like weren't digging it. You know, you can always tell like if someone is not into it. And then I realized I was just doing this ending that wasn't true to the story, wasn't true to the character, and wasn't really true to me. And then by the time I got to issue, when I wrote 50. I changed part of 50, knowing there was a big piece I wanted to do, but I was doing it too soon. And so I had to push it back. And once I pushed it back, and I was working on year one, because we started working on year one pretty much right after Flash War ended, even though it didn't come out until this last summer, I figured out what I wanted. And it's a completely different ending from what I thought I was going to do originally. And it's better. Like, I can feel it's a way better ending that says way more about the Flash and the Flash mythology and way more about what I would want to end the story on and end it in a way that I can then hand the baton over to whoever else takes over the book and then give them material to play with, but also tell them, like, do something completely different from what I have done, you know? So yeah, it's like, so knowing that the ending that I want to do now and how different it is from the ending I wanted to do 2 years ago, you never know what can happen. I might change my mind. If I get all the way to 100, I don't know. It happens sometimes. Like somebody's writing the ending to a book and all of a sudden they go, this isn't the right ending, and they change it. That happens, you know? Same thing with movies. So we'll see what happens when I'm writing that ending, if I realize it's the right ending or not.
Does it feel weird to have like a year one, almost I guess it is an origin story, so late into your run writing?
No, I don't know. I mean, I think about Jeff. Like Jeff did Secret Origins for Green Lantern. I think that was 2 years into his Green Lantern run. Same thing with Jeff did that with Superman. He didn't do he did Secret Origins of Superman after he'd been on Superman for a while. It's interesting, right? Because like Mark Waid did Born to Run. It's the first story arc of his Wally run, is Wally's origin. But no, I don't know. I feel like it fit where I needed it to. You know, okay. It's like Barry needed to go back, relive this memory, and then now he's back to being optimistic because he relived that memory, and it works. Yeah. It like works where it is in the story. And we're gonna collect it separately, so it'll be like it's not gonna be like it's not gonna say volume 10. It would have been volume 12. It would have been volume 12, I think. But we're not going to collect it as volume 12. It's going to be a separate hardcover, and then you will read the arc that we're doing right now, and that'll be 12.
Right. Looking forward to that. I'm really having fun reading that.
Thanks. Yeah.
Developments and possibly revisiting Nailbiter in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah. I mean, Mike and I talk almost every day. I was talking to him yesterday. I was talking to John. I think it'll just be a matter of time. There's a couple little things in there we got to do, and again, like everything else, I just want to make sure that we tell the best story we can tell, because I don't want to like come in and just do like. Because you think about horror sequels, right? Like I've been thinking about this a lot lately of like horror sequels. The best ones, they kind of. It's interesting. It's like they build upon it. They don't just do a repeat. They don't just do like an homage.
Like Michael Myers Halloween in Part 2.
Yeah, I want to do something that feels like. It's tough, right? Because I wouldn't make it an action thing, but that's kind of like when you look at Alien versus Aliens, like Aliens becomes an action piece, more or less. Oh, if I'd be capable of doing quite that, but it's been something I've been thinking about, like how to do a sequel that actually builds upon it. And I have a bunch of different ideas, and yeah, Mike and I talk about it all the time. So, just be patient. That's my answer.
Oh, no, I am. I'm a massive fan of the book, and I reread it this time of year. So I just, just keep your eye out.
Cool. You guys like Batman Superman? What?
Oh, it's
yeah.
cool to have another Batman Superman title.
Yeah, definitely.
Dude, yeah. I'm not sure if I told you guys this when we talked last. When did we talk last? Was that December? When was that?
It's been a while.
No, it was.
So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I told you guys this last time, but it's like way back when I first started talking to DC and working at DC, like a little bit here and there, I would do like little short story stuff. Way back in 2009, 2009, 2008, like a little bit in there. I met with one of the editors, and he was like, all right, you've done some small stuff. Let's move you up to these things. They're called inventory stories. And when you do an inventory story, it's like it might not ever come out, but it's like a test to see if you're like a crazy person or not, and to make sure you're actually good, you know? So they were like, all right. So they pulled me aside at a convention. I think it was San Diego Comic-Con 2009. So they pulled me aside at a convention, and they're like, all right, we're going to give you an inventory story. We're going to pay you. You do a 20-page comic. We're going to see if you're a crazy person or not. We're going to see if you can write these characters and how you are to work with, blah, blah, blah. They're like, all right, you can pick, though. You can either do a Batman story or you can do a Superman story. But don't say Batman because everyone says Batman. And I was like, dang. So basically you're telling me I have to write Superman, like in my head. But I was like, all right, here's what I'm going to do. So I came back to him and I was like, all right, how about this? I want to do a Batman-Superman story, like a team-up. And he was like, oh, dang, no one has ever said that before. They always just pick Batman. Like, no, let's do both. And I was like, that's the whole thing is, like, I want to work in DC Comics. I want to write these characters. If I can't write these two characters together, like, what am I doing here? You know? And so he was like, all right, let's do that. So I wrote a couple of Batman short stories, or Batman-Superman short stories. Only one of them came out. I think I wrote 3. Only one of them came out, and it was a Damian hanging out with Supergirl one-shot that appeared in Superman Batman, the original one from the 2000s. And that came out, and that finally came out in 2010, like end of 2010. But so I went, and every single time I was around those editors, every single time I would just be like, hey, I want to do this. Hey, I want to do this. Hey, can I write Superman Batman every time? And even when I started working on Flash, that was like kind of on my mind. And almost 2 years ago, geez. So the end of 2017, we went to, was it in 2017? Yeah, in 2017, I was talking to them about just stuff, like, what do you want to do kind of thing, and like, what do you really want to do? What do you really want to do? And I was like, I don't know, what I really want to do, I don't think you guys are going to let me do. And they're like, what is it? And I'm like, I really want to do Batman Superman. Like, it's time, let me have it, you know? And they were like, oh, it's too soon. It's not, you know, I think because also Bendis had just come over and was going to be doing Superman. They were a little anxious about somebody else doing a Superman book at the same time. They're like, well, just wait. So I waited. But every time it would come up, I would ask about it. I would ask every single time. So like January of 2018, I was like, okay, when can I have it? Okay, cool. March, I was sitting there. We were doing a summit. And we're all having lunch, and I was just like, all right, so when can I have Batman Superman? Like, every single time I was around the bosses. And in May, we were having a meeting at breakfast, and we started talking about Batman Superman and all the stuff we were going to do, all these, like, Year of the Villain plans we were building. And I was just like, and this is May of 2018, so this is last year. And I was like, that'd be a perfect place to have a Batman Superman. And they were like, oh my God. And they were like, all right, yeah, that might make sense. And this kept going until September of last year. So a year ago. And I was having a meeting with them. Oh, no, first it was August. So we were at a convention in August, and I was like, all right, Batman Superman, what's up? What's going on, Batman Superman? And they were like, okay, we think we're going to give it to you. We think this is going to work this time, but we're not sure when they're going to start, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, all right, cool. And then 2 weeks later, I saw them again. And that time they were like, okay, stop writing Odyssey, because at the time I was still writing Justice League Odyssey. They were like, stop writing Justice League Odyssey. Now you can start writing Batman and Superman. And I was like, yes, finally. So I've literally been trying to get this book for 10 years.
I think that was just kind of a negotiating ploy. They always knew all along that you were the guy to do it, but they're like, let's make him desperate enough.
Yeah.
I need to be your agent, man. I get this shit done quicker.
Well,
when are you going to go be an editor and then get all the power?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like that's like 10 years from now. Okay. I think sometimes people in their professions, they have like a second stage of their career in a weird way. And I could totally see that, like, the second stage of my career being somebody who works in the office and works editorial, because I actually really enjoy it. I really like doing all the world building stuff. I like all the event planning.
Yeah.
I like sitting there talking with creators, talking with editorial. I like being in the building. So I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, literally, I've been trying to get this Batman Superman book for 10 years. That's crazy.
You finally got it. August 28th. We finally get issue 1. If you had to sum up what people should expect from the series and why they should pick it up, what would you tell them?
Jeez, these questions are always tough because it's like you want them to be short, but then I'm a long talker, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, as we talked about before, I think that if you really want to see how Superman and Batman, how they work together and how they really shine and really show how they're the greatest heroes in the DC universe, you got to put them into some really dark situations, and that's what we're going to do. Like, it's definitely going to be a dark situation to be in, but you're definitely going to be able to see how Superman and Batman are the greatest heroes coming through it. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, you're interested in seeing your heroes go up against really hard challenges, this is definitely a book for you. But it's also a lot of fun. There's definitely a lot of fun elements. There's a little bit of playfulness to it. I definitely want it to be like the best kinds of horror where it has like a little bit of humor to it. So all of that will go into this book. So if you're looking for that kind of stuff, you're looking for a little bit of a horror book, a little bit of a superhero book, I think you'll have fun with this one. Well, I'm glad you guys liked it.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, absolutely. And with you saying that David's art gets better as he gets more comfortable with the characters he mentioned, the art in issue 1 is outstanding.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. He put a lot of work into it. Go ahead.
I don't think you could have picked a better artist for this story because, I mean, yeah, he does everybody so good.
I got really lucky, dude, because we talked to other. We never talked to any other artists. We talked about other artists, and there was like one or two we kind of talked with a little bit. But the moment David's name became an option, like, we just shut everything down. Just like, we're not going to talk to anybody else. We're not going to do anything else. It has to be David. And then it worked out. Yeah, so I just got really lucky, and he's doing kick-ass stuff. But I'm telling you, like, the next few issues, there's crazy stuff in there.
Man, I was trying to find some of his because he did a small run on Daredevil.
Yeah.
And I was trying. I think he. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he draws digitally, and then once he gets the artist proof back, he'll put the artist proofs up for sale.
Yeah, he does. It's interesting. So I'll so he does digital except for some stuff, right? So the covers are not digital, and then occasionally there'll be like a spread. So in issue 1, the spread where Superman and Batman are on the rooftop together. That he drew traditionally. And I have this thing where a lot of times I will get the last page of issue 1s that I work on.
And just keep it.
Yeah. So Nailbiter, I have the very last page. Birthright, I have the last page. Ghosted, I have the last page. Flash was done digitally, both the Rebirth issue and the issue 1, so I couldn't get the last pages of those. Same thing with Odyssey. With Justice League Suicide Squad, there's a 2-page spread toward the ending that Jay Fabak actually did draw, so I got that. But so I've always, but with Batman and Superman, I was like, well, he draws digitally, so I'm not going to be able to. And then just by coincidence, David drew the last page.
Really? So you have it?
Yeah, I have it right here. Yeah, I got it. It's literally like a few feet away from me. I couldn't believe it because him and I were talking, and he was like, I don't know what we were talking about. I think we were talking about the cover, and he was like, oh, I did the cover traditional. I did that 2-page spread traditional. And then he was like, and I just decided, I was in the mood. I think his wife and kid were on vacation, and he was home alone. He was like, I was in the mood, so I just drew the last page. And I was like, what? You really drew the last page? And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, my God. So, yeah. Can I get that from you?
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I have it right here. I haven't framed it yet, though. I have to get it framed. But, yeah, man. Yeah, like, it was such a, I don't know, this book has been a really good experience, and I'm curious people are going to think about it, because, yeah, it is a little on the dark side, but,
it's perfect. I like that.
Well, dark is good, man. What do you feel about this current popular growing trend with the marriage between DC Comics and these horror elements? Like, we have DC's Metal had a lot of it, and you got Deceased right over here, and now
Yeah.
And now, like, you know, you're pretty much a master at it as well. Like, Nailbiter could attest to that. Like, I think it's a great trend growing from what I see. How do you feel about it? Coming, you know, in terms of coming from your background as dealing with those elements.
I feel like you definitely have to have a balance, you know? Like, I like Tom's doing with Deceased, but, like, not every book should have it, obviously. Like, I like doing it here, but the reason why it works here is because Bendis isn't doing it in his books. Like, because otherwise it would just be white noise, you know?
Yeah.
But I do like it, you know, because I like that stuff. Like, I really like Scott's Batman run. And there's a lot of horror stuff, especially in Court of Owls. Like, especially Court of Owls. You can see a lot of darkness in that story and a lot of horror stuff that he would play with, him and Greg. And, you know, so I feel like it just comes down to being a balance. Because if we all started doing it, every book was like that, then it's just white noise. Like, that I wouldn't be much of a fan of. But I like when we find little bits and pieces for it here and there. I think you can play with it and have fun with it.
Yeah, it definitely suits the Batman universe as well, like horror Halloween elements with Gotham.
But that's the thing. Also, I don't know if you guys are reading. I mean, I would think you would, but the Batman universe stuff that Bendis did with Darrington.
Yeah, those were the Walmart books at first.
The Walmarts, yeah. What do you guys think of those?
Yeah, the stuff
They're hard
that
to find.
It's great that anyone can jump on with it because it doesn't tie into any universes. There's no continuity stuff you have to worry about. It's just its own separate stuff.
Yeah, I really liked it. I feel bad. Yeah, I know that was like hard to find. I just asked him for PDFs, so I was able to read it. And I mean, I think it's the best stuff that Bendis has been doing at DC, and I really like Darrington a lot. But that book, like, look at that. Like, there's not a horror book. That's just straight up superhero fun, you know? And that works. Like, it works really well. Like, it's not campy at all. It's just fun. And it's like, it feels like, you know, you're I don't know. It works. It kind of reminds me a little bit of, like, how the animated series was to a certain way. You know? It's like, the animated series definitely had horror elements to it. I've been rewatching the animated series, like, a little bit. Every week, just like I'm so busy all the time, I can maybe watch like one episode a week. But I've been rewatching it a little bit, and yeah, there's definitely horror elements to it, but there's still a lot of fun going on. I think that's the stuff with the Batman universe stuff that Bendis did with Darrington. Like, it just has that. But that's the thing. Like, it's cool that exists, and then Batman Superman exists, and then you have Tom's Batman, you have Tomasi's Batman. It's cool that you can, if you are a fan of these characters, you have different avenues. You don't have to get them all. If you get them all, you might get a bigger narrative, but you can just go get what you want. That's the stuff I get really excited about with comics, is that the ability to have all those options.
Actually, you know comic book history in the industry inside and out. We haven't really spoke to any of our guests recently about this current news, and you'd probably have some amazing insight in terms of all this talk about how Jim Lee came open recently. I think Forbes actually put it out in terms of digital sales being really weak, and now, you know, there's this question about the future of print or changes in DC. Like, what's your take on all of that?
I don't know, man. It's weird because I mean, I started reading comics when I was, you know, a little kid, and I started working at a comic book store when I was 14, and that's 1995, right? This entire time, like, once you start working at a store, you're around a lot of people who talk about comics. The entire time I have worked in comics, like worked at a comic book store, been around comic book people, all of it, they've always been doom and gloom, dude. It's always the sky is falling. Even in 97, I remember working at the comic book store and Marvel went bankrupt, and it was like, you know, yeah, the sky was falling. Like, people were freaking out. There was a huge implosion, like all that stuff. It has never changed. And so to me now, and it's like, I try to look for the warning signs, all this stuff, but I don't stress out about it. Like, I just get my head back down and get back to work. That's the only thing you can really do, is make good books. That's the only solution you can do. There's no tricks. There's nothing you can do. You can make good books and try to get them in people's hands. That's all you can do with it. So when I hear that stuff, it's always kind of funny to me, because I'm like, I've been hearing this my whole life, pretty much. You know, you're always hearing this doom and gloom. You're always hearing this stuff. And things are definitely changing, and the market is changing, and the audience is changing. All that stuff is great, but none of it's bad. But I think sometimes change can be scary, you know? Digital stuff, like, I've never heard digital numbers. It's like one of those things that isn't unknown. We never really know them. Like, that's something the bosses don't talk to us about.
Right.
It's a lot like music and how everything's going streaming, you know?
Yeah.
People, and I keep my ear, you know, to the music business stuff, because, you know, that's kind of what I do a little bit more on a hobby level.
Sure.
But I still work with some people that and know a lot of people that are in the music business, and that's digital music is the future, but
Sure, yeah.
like what you said, it's hard to pinpoint actually what the numbers are, because
Yeah, I mean, with digital comics, I mean, I don't think that's a secret. I'm not telling you anything that's a secret, obviously, because Jim said it. It's like, yeah, they plateaued, but they plateaued a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I don't know why that Jim Lee interview was the one that, like, maybe because Jim said it and it was in Forbes, or because it was, I think it was an IO9 interview he did, and then it got picked up on Forbes, but that's not new. Like, I feel like that's been kind of publicly talked about for a while now. That digital sales have plateaued, like a long time ago.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think digital music sales have plateaued as well, because everyone wants everything free digitally.
yeah. I mean, dude, I use Amazon. It's funny we say free, but it's like I have Amazon Music, and it's just a Prime account. You pay a couple extra dollars more, and that's how I listen to music now. Like, I just go on Amazon Prime, I type in the thing, or they'll advertise like, "Oh, new album." Like, click and listen. That's it.
Right.
That's how I do it. So it's like, I'm not sure what the equivalent of the comics are. With Marvel, there's a few books from Marvel that I buy when they come out. It's a few here and there, right? So it depends. It's like Immortal Hulk, Absolute Carnage, Avengers. I get those, right? I get them when they come out that week. But everything else, I got House of X and Powers of X too. I really like those a bunch. But a lot of stuff, not to say everything, but a lot of stuff, dude, I just read on the Unlimited. Like Doctor Strange. I started reading Doctor Strange because of Unlimited. I really like it a bunch. But like right now, I've been rereading Bendis's New Avengers, and I swore I had the hardcover of it. I swore I did. I thought I had an omnibus of New Avengers, and I don't. And there's a part of me that was like, "Oh, I gotta buy that." Like, I don't have a copy of New Avengers. What kind of fan am I? Like, I gotta go buy that New Avengers omnibus. But then I was like, wait, all of that is on Unlimited, all of it, and I want to read it. So I'll just read it over there. So it's like, but I still pay that membership fee every year, and I'm not sure what the effect of that is on our industry. I really don't know.
I wonder how many people are doing the same thing you are, like checking out a book on Unlimited or wherever they're reading digitally, and then just like, oh, I really like this. I'm going to start picking up the physical copies when I'm at the shop. I wonder how much that's happening.
Yeah, I think it depends. So like Doctor Strange was one where this is a weird thing, but like when Doctor Strange, I read all of it, whatever was up to date on Marvel Unlimited. So I read all of it that was on there, but it's 6 months behind, right? Like 6 months behind publishing. So I went to my comic book store and I was talking to the guy and I was like, oh, I really want to, like, you have Doctor Strange comics? He was like, no, we're sold out. They were the shop that I go to, they usually saw out of everything. Because they're mostly a pull store. The shop that's closest to my house is mostly a pull place, right? Like people go and pick up their comics from their pull, and that's it. They don't really keep a lot on the shelf as much. And so I was like, all right, that's fine. But he was like, however, we had a lot of people who did not pick up their pulls, and they just they had that stack. You ever seen that, where people have like a stack of people who didn't pick up their pulls? And
I work in a shop, so I see it all the time.
Dude, yeah. So I was like, hey, can I flip through this? And he was like, yeah. And I went through there, and I found all the Doctor Strange that were published up to date, plus like a bunch of other little things. And I was like, I'll buy all of this. Like, I will help this shop out. So I bought a bunch of other stuff that was in there that I was like, I'm kind of interested in this. So sometimes it does happen for me. It just depends. There's some stuff I'll buy. So like with Immortal Hulk, that was one of those books that I'll probably buy in like multiple versions. Like I was buying the issues at first. Then I switched over to digital, and I will probably end up buying the hardcover when they put out like the 12-issue hardcovers, Same thing with DC is weird because DC, I get everything for free. So with that one, I just have like stacks of DC stuff around my house, and I read it all when it comes out. Like I read all that stuff Wednesday morning. But with Image, I'm trying to think. Image, I think there was a couple where I would buy like 1 or 2 issues worth, and then I would end up buying the hardcover collection or something. But yeah, I don't know how many people go from the digital and go over and. But I think that's one of the benefits of the 6-month gap, because if you're like hardcore into it and then you find out you can go buy the Trey or the 6 issues to get caught up, just go buy it and catch up, you know? This is Joshua Williamson. I write Batman Superman that is coming out August 28th. You're listening to Bat Force Radio.
Hey Gotham dwellers, make sure to stop everything right now and subscribe to Bat Force Radio. We can be found on iTunes and SoundCloud. Don't miss out. Guaranteed to satisfy all of your Batman and DC needs.